City Matters.
Welcome back here to the Fog of War and Humanity here on HMTV for our second episode with Assistant Chief of the New York City Fire Department, Michael Meyers. Now, we were talking about some of the concerns, right, with the new bikes, with the electric, with the power, with all the different components that go into it. When you look back in the 1990s, what were some of the concerns that you saw kind of going through that decade itself?
I think it was mainly navigating that drug era. You know, during the 90s, my first 10 years on the department. Again, I was lucky enough to, after 8 years in East New York and Brownsville, I got into a special operations company, Rescue 4 over in Queens. So I got to go to fires.
Where was that in Queens there?
It's on Queens Boulevard.
Okay.
Right in Elmhurst.
Okay.
So, got to go right over there and, got to see every fire, every type of, learn all kinds of training as far as high angle, confined space. They do it all there, scuba training to go into the water. So you got a real taste of everything, for the next couple of years as we were going through that. So I learned a tremendous amount about fires and fighting fires.
And that was a different change of pace because now you're up in Queens, which is obviously different than Brooklyn. What were the differences that you saw up there?
Well, again, I was borough-wide in Queens. So anything that happened in that borough, any fire emergency we were going to go to over there was a little bit different in Brooklyn. At that time, the neighborhoods were much different in Queens. Again, Queens a little bit more blue collar, where the parts
Was there a little bit more stability in Queens?
Yeah, I would say at that time, mostly in Queens, a little bit of a different.
I know the drugs were up there, but was it as prominent up there?
It wasn't as volatile as Brooklyn could be at that time. At that time, Brooklyn, just again, there was certain times because of
it's rough, right?
Just a rough neighborhood, and a rough time, for that. A lot of projects, a lot of buildings over there that unfortunately, again, that the people, not a lot of great education and stuff like that. Not a lot of opportunity where the folks in Queens, I think, had much more opportunity, much better opportunities at education, which usually, leads to better opportunities.
What was your rank? You're now in the service for 7-8 years, right? You're getting closer to 2,000, right?
Yeah. So in 2000, I got promoted to lieutenant.
What was that like? Was that?
Yeah, it's different, again, because now you're one of the people on the team, and now as a lieutenant, you're the boss, you're the manager of a team. So going out there and learning that aspect of the job and learning again how to lead folks. At that time, I'm 32 years old, 30 years old, 32 years old, and trying to teach people and trying to get people to listen to you when, they could be 50 something years old. So, leading people that were older than you and helping, them describe your vision to them and what you needed them to do. And again, learning from them as well. Never ever thinking that you know it all, because again, you can learn from absolutely everybody. What you're seeing in your 10th year on the department on a run could be brand new to you. You might have a probationary firefighter on that apparatus. It's his first day. He's seeing that for the first time, just like you.
Would you ever go back to your dad and ask him advice?
Oh, yeah. I think, the senior men in my firehouse.
Because he's an older man. He sees things a little bit differently, right?
Yeah, he did over 40 years between the Marine Corps and the fire department. So, again, he had a lot of experience.
The Meyers guys are tough. Good guys, but they're tough though, right? No nonsense, right? Like
we do our best,
right?
we've had some fights growing up with each other,
and
with
other
folks
people
outside,
too.
outside.
It doesn't make you a bad person,
Thankfully, most of us won more than we lost. But losing teaches you a lot too sometimes.
Yeah. Now your dad, he gives you a little wisdom too, right?
Oh, absolutely. He was a staff chief. He retired as a Manhattan Borough commander. He was in charge of the 9/11 site. After the third or fourth day for a long period of time. So he had a great amount of experience, especially fighting fires in the South Bronx, in those late 60s, early 70s. And then going to Jamaica, Queens as a lieutenant for himself.
Which is a big area
Which was again, another beaten down area, very similar to East New York and Brownsville and Brooklyn. And again, he's there and again, seen a lot of it, done a lot of it. And to this day, I still rely on him as a source because, again, being at the same level he retired at, he's got a lot of wisdom and experience. And believe it or not, you know, 30 years later, it still all ties together.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and it's, you know,
leadership. It's
exactly.
knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So now you're a lieutenant. You're in a house, right?
Right.
What are your responsibilities? Who's the head of that house?
So when you're a lieutenant, usually if it's in a single house, the lieutenant is in charge of that house for the day. If you're in a house with two companies, you could have a captain working. That captain would be in charge of the lieutenant.
But you're a senior guy in that house.
You're going to be the boss in charge of it. Ultimately, you're responsible for the 5 or 6 men that are working underneath you.
What were some of your responsibilities in the house?
Again, as a lieutenant, you're going to lead, make sure everybody's drilling, make sure everybody's up to snuff, make sure that the PPE is all good. You know, again, making sure, again, that you lead by example, making sure we're all turning out for runs, going where we need to go, you know, that we're prepared to do what we need to do as a lieutenant. That's your biggest responsibility, you know, is to make sure that you take the captain's directives and, again, pass them on to the members in the firehouse.
Kind of make sure the younger guys are squared away, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You want to make sure you're drilling with them, that you're working with them with their tools, making sure, again, that if that bell rings, and no matter what you face, that they're prepared to deal with it.
Was there any one drill that you, to this day, that you like doing?
I always love anything that we could do with forcible entry. You know, trying to get into places that seem like they're impossible to get into. So that was always a fun aspect of the job.
What kind of door? Like a steel door or
steel door? Any type of door you could imagine. You know, again, we had to learn how to force our way into that.
Did you have like a barricade that you went? We
used a Halligan and an axe, or you're going to use a bunny tool, you know, to get in there and make sure that you get in there. So a rabbit tool, again, make sure that you get in there and, you know, spread that door and get in there and you know, get into almost any type of structure.
And you teach those guys which way to hit the door, right? The most vulnerable spot.
Right, which way to hit it, and then also to control the door, because if you're going into a fire building, you don't want the door to just spring open.
Yeah.
Because again, that's why we ask anyone as part of our education system in New York City, again, make sure you close the door when you're leaving a fire area, because you don't want that fire to spread until you have a hose line in place.
Now, on the other side of the coin, was there any one drill to this day, you always like, I really don't want to do this, or I'm not a big fan of this drill. I know you have to do it. It's like the military. There's certain things you have to do.
Yeah, I think always the confined space drills are always the toughest ones, because you have to practice. Otherwise, you can't play when the time's on the scene. But again, I'm not exactly a small guy.
Sure.
You know, to fit into some of those tight spaces and be in some of those real confined spaces, you know, in a pipe or something along those lines. You know, it's great that you can do it, and you know that you can do it. It's a lot more fun when you're outside of that pipe and you're no longer restrained and trying to move, and you move your hands and you're confined in there. Those are always, I think, the toughest ones.
Yeah, everything can't be easy, right? It can't be, you know, always to your liking, right?
No, exactly.
So, all right, so now you're in the 90s, you're a lieutenant. Where are you on September 11th, 2001 there?
Yeah, so September 11th, at that morning, I was actually off. I was home watching my daughter, who was about 1 at the time.
And you were in Levittown?
I was in, actually, Merrick at that time. Lived in Merrick at that time. So, I'm watching my daughter, my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, so she's, at work over in Uniondale. So, saw what happened. I was watching Barney with my daughter.
Sure.
My mother called me up and said to see what happened. I turned from Barney to see the
because you don't know. It's a regular day. It's a beautiful day.
You're upset that you're missing probably the biggest fire in New York City as history.
Yeah.
You see that plane into that building. And so as I'm watching it, the second plane flies into the second building. So at that point, you know that it's no longer an accident. Right? So, again, like now I jump up. I'm trying to get in touch, because it was really before the advent of cell phones. When 9/11 was there, people barely had cell phones. Or they certainly didn't carry them like they do today.
And the communications...
Right, a lot different.
Right.
So trying to get in touch with my ex-wife, and unbeknownst to me, she's not answering on purpose, because she's seeing what's happening and she doesn't want me, because she knows I'm going to go in.
Yeah.
So I went to where her work was, dropped my daughter off to her. And again, and the toughest part is, again, this is going in, and I went to my old quarters at Rescue 4, and we commandeered a bus and went in. Got there about 20 minutes after the second collapse.
Did you respond to the first World Trade Center attack in the early 90s?
I did not.
With Bin Laden?
At that time, I was coaching wrestling, in high school wrestling. So we were up in Syracuse at the state wrestling tournament. So I was not. But
was there any training from Bin Laden's first attempt? that filtered down to you guys during the 1990s there?
Yeah, so we used to train for just fires and emergencies, and then we had to add in that whole aspect of terrorism.
Sure.
And hazmat.
Yeah.
So we got a lot more of that training in between the first World Trade Center bombing and the actual Trade Center. So thankfully we had a lot of that in there. And again, like especially in the special operations world, they put some squad companies into effect too in every borough. So the rescue companies actually had backup in the squads, and unfortunately for a lot of those folks from the squads, along with the other 343 firefighters that day, a lot of them perished at that Trade Center. So
the first podcast I've ever done was back in February, and that was with a New York Yankee. He played for the Yankees, the Braves, the Brewers. His name was Frank Tepedino. He went in Frank Aaron after he broke the Babe's record. He was a 9/11 fireman. And it was like the same thing. He was home. He was doing some financial paperwork on his home. His sons were on the job, and he came in, and he always said, I didn't know them all, but I lost 343 friends. And,
it was a tough time because, again, like it was, for me, being in special operations, working in Brooklyn, playing on the FDNY football team for 10 years.
And being around those guys.
And being around those guys, probably about 150 out of the 343, I knew very, very well, meaning that I'd broken bread with them, had drinks with them, been out with them, work with them. Yeah. So it was very tough scenario.
And then the other guys, you kind of know the names, right? You have a friend that knew them, right?
Right, you knew
saw
of them or knew about them. Right?
Yeah,
on the New York City Fire Department, there's always about 1 degree of separation. If I don't know them, someone I know is with them, or you went to Proby school with them, or you worked around them at some point. So, it's again, and then
time and experience, right?
Yep, exactly.
Now, you make it in there, right? How long does it take for you to get from Merrick, from that part of Nassau County, into Lower Manhattan? Is that where you go right away, or
I went to my old quarters in Rescue 4.
Was that up in Queens?
In Queens, so right on Queens Boulevard. So I caught up with a bunch of folks who were also from there. We commandeered a city bus and went in there. So I would say from when I was watching Barney to when I got there, probably about roughly an hour and 20 minutes by the time I'm on scene.
And pretty quick.
And the second collapse happens. So when we first got there, there was a wave of dust and debris coming at us. Not that initial one that you see on TV where the folks are all caked, but along with that smoke and with that dust cloud, we see like people coming at us in like a zombie, like including firefighters and cops with dust and debris caked on top of their heads and their helmets and firefighters and with like you talk about the fog of war, which is the name of this, with that 30,000 foot stare and that walking towards us like in a zombie like trance.
So they're coming out and you're going in and you don't know really what you have in store for you, right? It's just
you've
no never
idea.
seen anything like that.
And just from seeing the folks who saw what they saw, you knew it was going to be something pretty severe. Getting there because we're about a quarter of a mile maybe from. We parked on West Street, so we're about a quarter of a mile from it, and just looking at everything as you're going in and seeing those stairs and taking their equipment because we needed breathing apparatus and stuff like that.
The stuff that you didn't have, right?
That we didn't have, and people are handing it over, which on the fire department never happens. Nobody ever hands over their tools or their equipment, but they were just shot. The scene I always liken it to is Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan when they're at that bridge and the new folks are coming in and and they're kind of stumbling back towards where the new folks are coming in from. Very similar to that with that fog of war.
And like Band of Brothers with the Battle of the Bulge, like they just came right at us. All right, give me your stuff, and
right, like the Battle of Bastogne there and everything with that.
And they're walking out like, good luck, and it's terrible, right?
Yeah, watching those movies and watching those scenes.
Is that your reminders? You like history, you understand it?
I do, yeah, I love history.
Right? You watch some of it. Does that get you back to those moments in 9/11 a little bit?
It does, and again, like it also helps us with the leadership. We teach leadership and management. Again, we use a lot of clips from those shows, from those movies, from the military. The military is very closely tied with the FDNY. Like we always say, the war started with us over here, and the military folks picked that up, and really did incredible incredible things to that. So we're still close. We still go have Wounded Warrior rides, have Wounded Warrior visits. It's incredible. And, you know, when I worked in Times Square.
And you have a lot of military that's tied to the police department, the fire department.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're reservists, or guardsmen.
Yeah, I would say 25 to 30%
right?
of the New York City Fire Department has a military background.
Sure.
So it came from the military. So, you know, again, we have a lot of that and a lot of that closeness, you know, and again, seeing some of those folks coming back from the Persian Gulf and Afghanistan with missing limbs, missing eyes, you know, again, burnt, beat up, battered, and bruised, you know, and they're calling us heroes. And we're like, are you kidding me, man? Look at you, like all that you've done. And again, being deployed away from home. I know my brother was deployed 19 times as an Air Force pilot, you know, so for them to be deployed over there again and again and again, you know, from the first Gulf War all the way through, it's just tough being deployed.
Now, you're in there. You're there at 9/11. You guys take a bus in there. Are you there before, during, or after the second building comes down?
The second building had collapsed.
So it was already,
The second
gone,
building was down.
right?
So we're going into this debris field. The 7 World Trade had not collapsed yet. Second building comes down. We get in there. We see all the folks walking towards us. We got in there. We got on scene. We're looking at the Marriott Hotel. We're searching apparatus as we're getting closer to it. We got the 7 World Trade. We could hear like elevator stuff going off in there. Me and a couple of my other friends from rescue, we go in. We get up to about the 8th floor where there's a massive amounts of fire.
All right, so when you're down there, right, and you go, second building's collapsed, you go into which World Trade Center building now?
So we went into the 7 World Trade. We got up to about the 8th floor.
And that's what people don't understand, right? That there's a whole complex. You got the 2 big buildings, but there's several other buildings that are tied to the World Financial District.
So
right?
yeah, we heard in 7 World Trade as we were passing it, we heard like the elevator alarm going on and off. So we thought maybe somebody was trapped in the elevator. So we were going to try to see if we could get in there, get to that elevator. Going up the stairs, we hit a massive collapse in the stairwell, so we couldn't get past. As we're trying to get past it, massive amounts of fire. We're not unable to get past it.
Just total chaos, right?
Total chaos. We had no hose lines or anything to try to get us through there. So there wound up being nobody in that elevator, but we really thought because
How many were with you?
about 5 people with me, going and doing that. So then we went back to the site, and then we started to look for maybe, you know, what was most crazy is like first looking at it, reminds you of Planet of the Apes, the movie, when he's like, you know, he comes down and he sees the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand. He's like, what do you do? And you're there and you're looking and it's just this huge debris field of dust, fire, and your paper and steel. That was all that was there. So at that point then we started to try to search in voids, see if we could find anybody as we were going through that. So we're going down 50, 60, 70 feet in these crazy environments, looking to see if we could see any people. We would try to find paperwork to see what floor we were on.
Sure.
As we're going down into those voids, looking for people, looking for bodies. And, you know, 2 or 3 hours in, you're starting to realize that, you know, this
is it.
This is we're not finding anything. And, you know, doing that for about 18 hours that first day until I just couldn't do any more. Went back to the firehouse, slept for 3 hours, and then went back on scene.
Now, did you have a command post that was set up down there?
There was command posts, but again, like, you know, most of the command structure of the fire department had been wiped out with that. So again, we're trying to, the new commanders are coming in, you know, who weren't working that day. And again, like they're coming in
kind of starting
and
fresh,
regaining
right?
control. They're taking control of that situation. And again, the folks who were on scene, again, had that fog of war. So they're getting relieved and we're trying to regroup. And again, you know, just trying to figure out what the heck happened, you know, and what we could do to try to bring order to that chaos. And it took about 4 or 5 days before we really had a good control of that scene and a real good strategic plan, you know, going in there each and every day, trying to figure out what fires we were going to work with, putting out, sectoring it off, getting all that done. It was the first day or two, it was complete chaos.
Now, you're a Long Island guy, but you're tied to the city because of your job. were in Lower Manhattan at one time or another, right?
Sure.
Whether either working or, visiting, right? Great place down there. When you're going through that debris and it's just so new, right? In terms of the situation, what was your thoughts? I mean, you never seen anything like that. Nobody's ever seen anything like that before.
No one's ever saw anything. Nobody could have even envisioned that. Again, I've been in windows in the world and the World Trade Center like everybody else, and have walked through that complex, ate lunch sometimes in that complex. They used to have concerts and stuff like that that you'd go to, having lunch, look at some of the beautiful women.
Sure.
Who
it's a busy area.
Yeah, busy
there, right?
area. Go to the South Street Seaport.
Yeah.
As a young guy in my 20s and when I was in college, we'd take the train in from Post, and go to the world.
Have some fun down there.
Yeah, go to the Seaport and, great happy hours, great time to meet people and meet folks from in and around.
A lot of life.
Right? Oh yeah. Yeah, there was during that like Michael Douglas Wall Street era.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of
Greed
money, a lot of feed, that type of thing. So so there was a lot to see, lots to do down there. So to see that devastation down there, and again, worrying about other attacks, other areas that were going to be there. And again, not knowing if you're going home.
When you were initially there and you guys were like a stranger in a strange land, I mean, you almost had to feel almost like helpless or hopeless, right? In terms of...
Yeah, I think that was the despair of knowing that, again, we couldn't move that steel, no matter how strong you were, no matter how much you lifted, no matter how tough you were. And again, just seeing how human we were at that moment, where even somebody like Superman wouldn't have been able to untangle all that steel and all of that, because you see these buildings that were buildings, and you think about the interior of an office building, all the stuff that was inside that office building, but the sheer energy that the collapses created of 210-story buildings collapsing pulverized it all to dust. So that's that smell. And if you go to the museum today, you can get a little feel of that smell and that dust and that debris that we all live with for all that time. And so many folks, we're up to 300. We're up to, I think, 402 members who've died of World Trade Center cancer,
of the post
9/11 cancer from that, and knowing that that's inside of all of us and in our bodies, and that's a whole topic for another day about how. But we wouldn't change that, because to be down there and to bring some closure to a lot of the people, and to find your friends and to find relatives and the folks who've never found anyone, just so tough, kind of similar to what Israel's going through now with the hostages wanting to be released, right? Even if the hostages aren't alive, folks want their loved ones back and their closure.
Now, you look at, you're down there, it's hard moments, right? Psychologically, physically, right? How long were you down there before you were able to really go home and have a little downtime? Were you down there almost every day for a while?
I was down there working double shifts because my father was one of the incident commanders. So I would do my regular shift.
So your dad was there as well, huh?
Yeah, so my dad was there. Both of my brothers were there. My two younger brothers were there. One is a cop.
Yeah.
He was a New York City cop at that time. The other one is on the fire department. So again, working 18-hour days.
Were you guys able to get into contact with each other? Because you're in the city jobs, right? They're tough jobs, and you have all this happen. What was it like?
Yeah, the hardest part is initially the first 10 or 12 hours. You didn't know if your brothers were alive, your father was alive, who was on scene, who wasn't on scene. So you're trying to find phones and trying to find things to get in there and really try to get in there and get in contact with someone. There was no cell phone, so everybody kind of called home at some point. My mother wound up being the focal point of that. So again, later on in the day, 10, 12 hours in.
Tough lady, right? In terms of...
Oh, yeah.
She's got her whole family not knowing what's going on, right? And Absolutely. She was kind of controlling point there a little bit.
And she might be the toughest one out of all of us at the end of the day.
Wow. So, all right, we're going to come back for a third term with Assistant Chief of the New York City Fire Department, Michael Meyers, here on the HMTV on the Fog of War and Humanity.